going to get going here. I am going to do my best to keep an eye on the chat, but we are recording this, so we can definitely send this out. We will send this out afterwards, just so you're aware. And then at the end, I'll do my best to circle back on any questions that I might miss just during the presentation that come up in the chat if they do. We are here to talk about modernizing phishing response programs and how you guys approach it and how we're approaching it here at Red Canary. And so I'm excited to talk to you about this. It kind of ties in with a new product that we just recently introduced. And so I'm excited to show you that as well. Again, feel free to jump in with questions, feedback along the way. Definitely want to hear your all's opinion on this. Before we get going here, I want to introduce myself a little bit more. So my name is Jake Davidson. I have been at Red Canary for a little over 6 years. There's a year-long hiatus in there when I tried to do some stuff in incident response land, and that probably felt like 5 years to me, but it was a learning moment. But my focus here at Red Canary in specific as a product manager is on phishing, which we'll talk about today, a lot of our automation capabilities, readiness, and then just response and remediation as a whole. So a lot of the stuff that's sort of ancillary to core threat detection is where I kind of live. Also bleeds into a little bit of the intelligence space as well. And a fun fact about myself, I was asked to add one of these, and I couldn't really think of one until I thought of one immediately, which is that my wife and I are taking our 18-month-old son to Europe at the end of next week for a family vacation. And I'm not too worried about the trip out there. It's like a 9-hour flight overnight. Hopefully we get 6 hours of sleep out of them. But the way home from Sicily is got like a 12.5-hour flight that is just during the day. So wish me luck. If you see a big ball of flames in the air, it's probably me trying to wrangle in an 18-month-old. All right. So before we get too far ahead of ourselves here, we want to talk a little bit about some of the phishing trends that we're seeing out in the wild. And so Zscaler actually put out a recent report around some of their observations. I'll tie in some of our observations from the front lines as well. One of the interesting findings that I would say has a little bit of an asterisk on it is this first one, which is that phishing volume or email volume is down. And a lot of that ties into some recent improvements that, Google, for instance, has made around just preventing sort of the bulk unknown senders from even being able to deliver an email. That said, it has increased the opportunity for more targeted emails. So that's why I say there's a little bit of an asterisk here on this one, because while overall volume might be down, there has been an increase in some of the more targeted, sophisticated, tailored phishing emails, which are actually a little bit harder to identify in the wild. And so that's why I add the asterisk there. To that extent, a lot of these new attacks are coming up with creative ways to evade sort of the analysis, the determination, the detection that an email was phishing. So we've seen adversaries leverage things like legitimate types of CAPTCHA and experiences for users that actually navigate to a phishing website to further sort of reinforce or make it feel like it's an authentic product or service or web page. And so they guide the user through an otherwise seemingly normal sort of validation that they're not a robot or something like that. And it helps further establish or build trust with that user to then follow on with some sort of credential harvesting attack. And all that's to say, we still see the run-of-the-mill stuff, the fake invoices, the help desk impersonations. They're still highly prevalent. They're around. Attackers now have more avenues to actually deliver these at scale using things like generative AI and really tailoring the messaging, converting it to different languages and so forth. And so they still exist. They haven't gone away. We've just seen a little bit of a switch in terms of the targeted, more sophisticated types of attempts. And so here at Red Canary, one of the things that we recently started focusing on about 9 months ago, actually, was user-reported phishing emails in particular. So these are the emails that otherwise bypass most of these controls. They actually make their way into an inbox, an actual human's inbox, and someone has the knowledge or the understanding or the vigilance, I should say, to actually report. They click that little hook icon and they report it. And so we've analyzed thousands. I think last count was north of 45,000 of these emails, these reported phishing emails in the last 9 months. And we've seen, a significant uptick in terms of just social engineering and credential phishing. Whereas the malicious attachments themselves remain relatively low. The tools have remained pretty good at actually keeping the volume of those from being delivered down. But roughly about 16% of these emails that get reported have been confirmed as legitimate phishing attempts. And so while there's a lot of noise, there is some gold that can be dug for there. And so it's important to make sure you understand that there are legitimate phishing attempts that are making their way through. And while your users might be one of your weakest lines of defense, they're also one of your last lines of defense. So what undermines a lot of phishing response programs, at least from my discussions with a lot of sort of the Fortune 1000 customers? First and foremost, not anything revolutionary here, but teams are overwhelmed. We've been saying this for a while. It doesn't apply specifically to just phishing emails and user-reported phishing emails. Teams are overwhelmed. And phishing reports in particular do add noise to that. Some contain threats, some don't, or most don't. But they all reflect some level of employee vigilance. And so they require some level of human input, feedback to help close that loop. That said, the operational bottlenecks that they actually introduce are challenging. So there's a lot of manual triage process. Teams have invested in a lot of tools that help automate aspects of investigating and responding to a lot of these phishing emails that get reported. But the tools have, in my opinion, they've struggled to evolve where there's more of a subjective type of decision that's required. So there's nothing that's malicious like no malicious indicators that can be keyed off of. So there's no, attachments or URLs. It's just, luring or attempting to establish a relationship or build trust via some type of social engineering. And a lot of the times the tools don't know what to do with those. And so they end up in a state of, undetermined or unclassified or require human intervention. And that's where the analysts have to step in. And there's a lot of manual process that slows teams down. And that actually impacts a lot of the other additional SOC workflows that they're having to that they're responsible for daily. And then, as I mentioned, to start a little bit, one of the things that's really important here is user reports in particular, closing that loop. Teams struggle to deliver feedback to each reporting user consistently. And without that timely, tailored feedback, you eventually start to erode the very thing you set out to try to achieve through your awareness training programs. And so teams spend all this time and money training users to be conscious of the emails they receive and how to report them. And then if they report emails and they report 5 over the course of a few months and none of them get responded to or acknowledged past an automated sort of delivery acknowledgement, they don't get any feedback. Over time, they start to question, like, what is even the purpose of this? And they stop reporting. And so it's important to deliver some level of feedback. Hey, congrats, you caught a fish, or this was benign, but we appreciate you remaining vigilant on our behalf. Something simple like that. So some of the tactics that we've been seeing adversaries employ, and I talked about this a little bit earlier as well. The first one being adversaries leveraging Google Translate to hide malicious URLs. And I believe we're posting a blog about this with more technical details, so I won't get into it too much here. But they're essentially, leveraging a trusted service and in particular, Google's Translate capabilities to rewrite or hide malicious URLs in the emails they're delivering, which bypasses a lot of the keyword indicators that a lot of the tools are looking for. So some things to look out for there, obviously free email sender domain, lots of recipients is another one, scrambled words. And I believe in specific, the ones that we've seen the most of here have been translated from Spanish or vice versa to English. So Spanish and English in particular. Another one we've seen are URL shorteners with a trusted site for credential harvesting. And so the URL shorteners are hiding a hyperlinked type of, or a URL within like a hyperlinked image, potentially multiple uses of the word open within the email. And when the user clicks on those, obviously bad stuff happens, but the tools are failing to pick up on them because they're not actually analyzing the full email. They're just analyzing the shortened version. And finally, we've seen an increase in file smuggling using the SVGs. And so big thing to look out for here is just a mismatch between the actual body link and the QR code, for example. And so when you see these come through, they send a phish typically through a legitimate account that's been compromised, which makes the attack very convincing. And then the hidden files essentially evade your controls. And again, more detailed information on some of these tactics that we've seen is, I believe, getting posted as a blog or already has been posted as a blog. So more to come there. Some quick recommendations. I don't think any of these are groundbreaking. They're pretty fundamental, which, the fundamentals are always important. But before we move into some of the demo aspect of this, top 3 recommendations, at least from my perspective here: be wary of the trusted services, especially some of the ones like Google. We've seen a lot of interesting stuff with leveraging like OpenAI's trusted service to invite users to like ChatGPT projects, things like that. They are being leveraged by attackers to deliver these emails and bypass a lot of the prevention controls. As always, you've got to enforce some strong domain hygiene. So when these user reports come through and you have findings that determine, this was a confirmed phish, make sure you're updating your policies behind the scenes so that you prevent further instances of that email being, of emails being delivered from that sender. And then you got to always close the loop. I'm going to continue to beat that drum, but it's really important to close the loop and reinforce the strong reporting habits with your users. Again, they might be one of your weakest links in your defenses, but they're also one of your last sort of lines of defense. And so when reports come in from them, recognize it as something that has otherwise bypassed other controls. And if 16% of them are legitimate phishing attempts, and a small subset of those actually include some type of malicious link or attachment, it's really important that your users are catching those on your behalf. All right. So how are we solving this here at Red Canary? Well, with respect to the user reports in particular, we have developed a new solution called Managed Phishing Response, which essentially augments your ability to investigate and respond to user-reported phishing emails. And so when a user reports a phish, the email comes into our platform. We extract a number of the key contents of it. We leverage a proprietary phishing triage agent to actually look for a number of key features, we call them features, but indicators of a potential phishing email. We analyze and render any attachments, including metadata, in a safe way in the portal, same with URLs. And then our analysts come in and actually review the findings in the automated triage analysis, perform a more in-depth investigation, and essentially classify and finalize the assessment for the email as either a phish or not a phish with a detailed reason as to why. From there, we have automated playbooks that our customers can actually configure and manage in the portal on their own. They can do things like deliver tailored feedback to the reporting user, escalate confirmed phish findings to security teams for further action, and even take actions to clean up the email as well. All right. I do see a quick question in here, actually. How is a reported phish reported to Red Canary? Great question. So we're actually tapping into a number of the third-party or native report phish buttons that exist. And so essentially the customer creates we call them collectors, but it's a fancy word for an abuse inbox that gets added as a forwarding recipient to all user reports. And so then the email is packaged up, typically in like an EML, sometimes an MSG, forwarded to us where we do our work from there. Hopefully that answered your question, Mark. All right, quick demo. Everyone cross your fingers that I didn't get logged out of my demo environment here. All right. Here we go. So in the Red Canary portal, the way that this works, I'm going to pretend that I am actually a security analyst at one of our customers. And so I'm an analyst, I'm logging into my Red Canary portal, and I want to check in on the user reported phishing emails that we just recently outsourced to Red Canary. And so I click on phishing in the portal, and what you see here is you see a number of reported phishes that have come in recently. There's actually one still set to TBD, meaning we're still working, or Red Canary, excuse me, is still working on their assessment. But I, as a customer, or as a security analyst, have full visibility into that. I have control over it as well. The product has been built in a highly transparent type of solution. So anything that Red Canary is seeing, my team is seeing as well. I can see here that we've had a significant uptick in terms of confirmed phishes getting reported. Our users are doing a pretty good job. If I want to actually look at any of these emails, it's pretty easy for me. I just click into one. So here we've got this completed one that's set as a phish. And in this case, we've got a deconstructed analysis view of this email that includes the actual content. So in this case, there wasn't much in the email. All right, let's look at the actual attachment. It says there was one included. Right now, Red Canary is saying this was a phish. It was assessed to be a phish because it attempts to induce the recipient to open an attachment. Well, let's look at that attachment. So you can see here, the attachment renders into the portal in two ways. There's a rendered PNG, and then there's actually the metadata. And so if I wanted to look at the metadata, that's great. I won't bore you guys to death with the actual metadata here, but perhaps I want to review the actual, attachment that was delivered. In this case, it appears to be some sort of spoof DocuSign page. That's great. What about the actual headers? Like, how did this email end up in the user's inbox? It looks like it's passing authentication. So I can see here, if I want to, I can review all the different information. I won't bore you guys to death with reviewing email header information. But everything that I'm reviewing here is leading me to align with Red Canary's decision. So I have no reason to change this at all. If I do want to, I can provide context. I can actually change the assessment on my behalf by just changing it over here and changing the summary. You can also see a roll-up of all the activities. So in this case, you can see that the Red Canary collected the email. We immediately extracted and rendered the attachments. Triage agent found 12 features indicative of phishing. I'll show those here in a second. And then the assessment was changed to a phish. You know what? I agree. And fortunately, Red Canary provided a little bit more context for me here so that I feel pretty confident in this decision. Now, I'm wondering, what are these, features that the team is the Red Canary team has said are indicative of phishing? Well, let's click into the agent assessment here. And so the agent assessment is showing me a roll-up of all the different indicators that this might be a legitimate phishing attempt. But more importantly, I can actually drill into the specific features. And having talked with Red Canary, I've understood now that these are kind of similar to some form of like an analytic, but for phishing emails. And so it's looking for types of features that would indicate this is not a legitimate sender or a legitimate message. Is it urgent? Is it a inconsistent corporate sender? Is there any type of manipulation, impersonation? And so I can see all the matching indicators here, as well as the indicators that weren't actually found or identified in this email. So it's a great way for me to understand how are these confirmed phishes actually being delivered to my end users, so that over time I can improve my own controls and know what to look out for. Now, what do we do when a confirmed phish is actually confirmed to be a phish or not a phish? How do I actually deliver this? And so I talked with my SOC manager, and he said, well, hey, good news is we've already got playbooks set up for that. So all I have to do is navigate over to my automations page. And in this page, you'll see that there is a set of playbooks and triggers created. So in this case, when a phish has been changed to a phish, or a reported phish has been changed to a phish, two things are going to happen. The first is going to be that we send that end user feedback. And so in this case, it's going to automatically send a feedback to whoever reported that. It would input that here. And then it'll input, in this case, my manager's already typed out the information, the message that gets sent, but it would say, in this case, phish, along with that summary as to why it's a phish. Cool thing is, we've actually wired this up to route over our gateway. And so it's dropping Red Canary. I get to take credit for Red Canary's work here. So we're not confusing, Susie Q in accounting with a random email from Red Canary. It's appearing as if it came from our internal security team here. So we're taking credit for it. We're not confusing them at all. And then for the confirmed phishes, we also want to take action on those. And so we've sent an email to our security team here, complete with all of the findings of the actual reported phish assessment. And so Red Canary went in, did their magic, and now we want to understand what were the actual attributes of this reported phish. And so I can key off of this to go trace it across my organization, bulk quarantine, bulk remove, all actions that, having spoken with Red Canary before, I understand are actually on the roadmap as well, a lot of response actions. But for now, we get all the information we need to go identify and sort of burn down this email across our domain. And in the event there was not a phish determined, also send the same type of feedback, but in this case, we would be reinforcing the positive reporting habit, guiding the user on how to actually reinstate or recover the email. In this case, I believe we're using the Gmail settings. Now it gets sent directly to that reporting user the moment the assessment is set. And finally, my manager asked that we bulk export some reporting here. They want to see some trends, and so I can easily filter down what I would like to include, as well as the date range, and then export that and it'll go directly to my inbox, complete with all the findings, including a lot of the attributes and details from the actual assessment page, not just what's visible here on the actual table. All right, so that is the demo. Pretty straightforward. I want to make sure that I address any questions maybe that are lingering in the chat, or if anyone has other ones, they're welcome to chime in. Cool. Well, I appreciate everyone's time today. Hopefully you learned a little bit about how Red Canary is approaching user-reported phishing emails and some interesting ways that we're handling it with a phishing triage agent, as well as a combination of human analysis. Very excited for this product. We've seen a lot of success, and definitely appreciate your feedback on this webinar so that we can continue to do them. Oh, I got one question at the finish line here. Can you speak to the analysis being done on the URLs and files to make the determination if they're benign or malicious? Yeah, so we have a way of actually investigating these properly in our own sort of sandbox environment behind the scenes. In the portal, they're rendered in a safe view, mainly for context, so that you have an understanding of what we're looking at. But behind the scenes, we've got a number of features running, like IPQS enrichment, a sandbox analysis of attachment, and we go and do our magic on that to make sure that it's a legitimate or malicious type of link or attachment. Including sort of the links that route to a legitimate site, but then route to a not legitimate site after that. So it's sort of the double clicks, I'll call them. Oh, we got a lot of questions. I like this. Nice. Is there a range of Red Canary managed services to self-hosted phishing triage and analysis? Right now, it is a fully managed offering. So you would purchase the solution, and everything we talked about today would be included. So all of the emails would come to our team. We would perform the analysis or the assessment, set the assessment, facilitate the feedback via the automation playbooks we help you set up, and all of it comes to us. You just set it up and wire up your reporting button to configure the emails so that they route to us. And once that's done, we're off to the races. Assuming you work with KnowBefore and Microsoft Outlook report. So we do support the KnowBefore Phish Alert button, as well as Proofpoint Phish Alarm in both Outlook and Gmail. And the Microsoft Outlook report button is actually in development right now. It's pretty close, so that'll be supported in the next, I would say, like few weeks. All right, last call for questions.
Did you answer Oscar's? I don't know, you may have skipped over it.
Oh, sorry, I missed Oscar's. How else can you ingest reported phishes aside from the reporting button? Right now, we can only ingest them via the reporting button or a manual forward to our abuse inbox. So if there's other avenues that we need to explore there, we certainly can. For instance, the native report phishing button that Gmail provides in their inbox, that actually creates an alert. Google doesn't give us the luxury of forwarding via an EML or MSG. So eventually, when we get to supporting that button, we'll likely need to ingest like an alert from the user reports. We already, on the MDR side of the house, ingest a lot of the alerts that get created when a user reports. And so there's a lot of correlation and tie-in behind the scenes to our broader MDR offerings. Yep, sorry about that, Oscar. I didn't mean to miss your question. Well, I think that's it. Yep. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your time today. This is a great webinar, and look forward to seeing you all again in the future.